Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanna Victoria.
Hello, everybody. This is Joanna Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast. You are here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. And our guest today, Joanna Pohorski, is going to help you do that. Joanna is a business and life goals achievement coach and has condensed 20 years of experience working with some of the world's most recognizable businesses into the accountable mindset signature system. Joanna helps business owners and professionals achieve clarity on how to achieve their professional, business, and life goals faster. She has a lot to tell us, so I'm going to hand over the show right now for a brief moment to Joanna Pohorski. Welcome to the show, Joanna.
Hi, Joanne. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you are here because you seem to have insights to hacks, tips, and support for people who own their own business. So how do you do that? And how did you get to this place to even want to do that?
So I spent 20 years in different corporate roles, from quite junior to running a 70 million business with 350 employees. So I've really seen quite a breadth of the corporate world. And I have also worked as a management consultant, so had extra and additional exposure to different business models, different ways of making profit, and also different ways of how organizations can be structured, built, and also support employees, their ambitions, and also their careers. And what I've taken away from that is that actually there are amazing tools and models, hacks, and actually tips that the corporate world uses that are not necessarily known and popular and even visible within the entrepreneurial world, where business owners are setting up businesses and then growing their businesses, because it's a very different environment. Very often, these are all not corporate startups, but very often solopreneurs, an individual working from a home, from their own living room or garage at times. And sometimes they are not aware how to translate all these fantastic tools and opportunities that you find in the corporate world onto a much smaller business that has a lot more maybe challenge in the beginning and less support to start with. So I have decided last year to support the entrepreneurial community, business owners who are starting up and also growing their businesses and are not necessarily aware or either of the tools or the strategies, or don't know how to apply them to growing their business and making the business more of a success than it already is at that point in time.
Yeah, there must be some very significant insights that you have, because some businesses, off the top of my head, I think of Toyota that has been around for decades upon decades, and they must know something that the small person doesn't know.
Yes, and it's. I'm glad you bring this up, because I have just recently recorded a live session about the Kanban pull and push system that they have introduced as part of their continuous improvement toolbox, and how it actually applies to sales. And it's quite fascinating because in the entrepreneurial world, a lot of people are actually quite wary of sales and feel that it's pushy and are really uncomfortable with it. And when you take this Kanban system, which originally comes from manufacturing, it's all based on the push and pull of the client, customer of that product. So when you translate it onto the entrepreneurial world, actually a lot of people feel that they are pushing their service or product out to a potential client, as opposed to thinking, how can they create this pull from the potential client, from the prospect, where they can really see that where they have a problem and they need to solve a challenge they have, that particular entrepreneur can provide the solution for them.
That's interesting. How would an entrepreneur or a small business owner or a solopreneur, as you've stated, how would they use this push-pull? Because I've heard the phrase before numerous times, except it sometimes is a conflict or presents itself as a conflict to some small business owners because they don't feel like pushing, they only want to pull.
Yes, absolutely. So the starting point has always to be is that when a potential client, for a potential client to be able to actually pull, they have to know you exist. And recurrently, what I've noticed is that business owners think that putting themselves out there, being visible, sharing value, sharing content is actually something that they perceive as being already a push. From the point of view of client, which it isn't, because the value that as an entrepreneur we want to add, it has to be visible, it has to be in the public domain. So if we are wary already to going out and presenting that value, how is anyone ever going to have the chance of finding us and create that pool?
Okay, so you say sharing content and probably social media too is insufficient to pushing out?
Yes. So this is a starting point to create the pull. It's definitely not a push because the potential client still has to find that content and they then make the decision if they want to pull that and want that service and that product or not. So there's definitely not a push there that anyone should be feeling bad about it. This is about really putting the information, the content into the public domain to actually allow someone in the first place to create that pull and to pull that content and see yourself, as an entrepreneur, as someone who actually can help them solve their problem.
Well, what's interesting is there are so many more heads in the ocean now, bobbing up and down. I mean, obviously, it changes over time. Some people go out of business. Some people just can't even get their true start in business. And what would you recommend that, let's just say, a startup do? I mean, if they're putting forth content, they have the social media covered, that takes up time, or they have to hire somebody to handle that for them, the writing of the content as well as the posting of all the social media and the communication back and forth on social media, which can take a lot of time. And time that should be devoted to the business, not just the trying to get minimal exposure. What kind of things can a business do to get bigger exposure?
And that's a great question because social media and content creation can be a bit of a time trap. I completely agree. So other ways of actually becoming more visible that don't require necessarily content creation are partnerships. So I have spoken to a number of people who have who are looking to partner up with people where they offer a service or a course, and they are looking actually for maybe an add-on, an additional product or service that they themselves cannot offer, but is actually quite complementary to their offering, and means that their clients' requirements are more addressed than they wouldn't be if they were just there on their own providing that service or prospect. So an example I have seen, for example, is where two people teamed up. So there was a very specific focused business coach and someone who was helping people to understand their strengths and opportunities around wealth dynamics. And this is such an important element in a successful business owner, really understanding what are the strengths and what should they consider delegating or outsourcing to someone else who has a different skill set.
Yeah, that's important. Although my experience in partnerships, are you talking about one-time partnerships for a specific project or permanent partnerships?
It really depends on the two parties and their business setup and also how they offer the services and products.
Okay, because sometimes partnerships are referred to like marriages. And, it can be complex to partner with someone if the ground rules aren't clear. So do you support creating rules and guidelines for people to go into partnership, even if it's segmented or full-time, to create presence in the universe, presence in the business world, that they have a contract with each other?
Yes. So this is, again, a very important point you're raising, because the fact that two people are aligned on the values does not mean that they are going to agree on everything. And a business relationship should never be confused with a personal relationship. So we're not talking here about necessarily huge contracts, more something around roles and responsibilities potentially. I mean, depending on how big the two businesses are, of course, and how much money can be potentially involved. But when you look, for example, at collaborations where people attract each other's audiences and mutually offer each other's products, very often there's an affiliate setup, and it has to be clear from the beginning exactly what happens and what will be offered on what conditions. And this is obviously a contract, maybe not 100-page contract, maybe just one pager. However, this is really important to consider up front exactly how that working relationship is going to work. You're right, absolutely.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of an agreement. Otherwise, you have egos involved. And, I want to do, as you say, if they're aligned in their values, which to me is number one, and they're willing to support the other person in whatever way possible in order to create a third, because what they're doing is creating a third. It's not an individual. Well, let's just say they're creating a third element to their relationship, business relationship. So when they're creating this third element, they both have to agree. And if they disagree, they need somebody to step in, or they could ask somebody to step in, or if their egos are not so prevalent, they can discuss amongst themselves and clarify the issue. Do you set up people in partnerships on your Facebook group?
So I haven't brought people at this point together yet in partnerships. However, I'm currently in discussion and conversation with a number of coaches who potentially have I might be teaming up with, where I offer the course, the accountable mindset system, and the content to help people grow their businesses. And there will be elements where actually I'm not going to be the best person probably to really convey certain content at a very deep level. And I'll be offering this up from partners who I'm looking to team up with.
So are you looking, is this similar to a franchise of your system?
So more like a joint venture.
Okay.
So I have,
I hate to label things. I'm just looking for clarity, because I hate labels, because labels can be limiting. That's why I'm trying to be not vague, but just sort of define a word or a phrase that our audience would understand.
Yes. So in property, actually, so I'm a property investor as well. And property, there's the term of joint venture.
Yes.
And a joint venture is, just like you described, an overlap between two companies, two individuals, where they come together to generate an additional value they couldn't generate otherwise for the audience.
Now, do you find that there is resistance with people not wanting to go into a partnership with others?
I think it depends on a couple of questions. So it depends on the person and their real personal experience. So when I know someone who got burned, I would call it, in the past, and they are just generally now quite not very open to other partnerships, just because the experience they had was not very, very good and positive, and impacted them quite negatively. Also, and I spoke before, people who I help are sometimes solopreneurs who who build a business on a passion and something that's really close to them. So there's a very close relationship, and they really struggle to build that trust to actually allow someone in and trust someone enough to help them continue building up their business. And when someone is in a place where they don't necessarily want to trust or can trust someone, then of course this is not going to be lending itself to creating partnerships. And the dilemma, of course, in such a situation is that as a business grows, or for a business to grow, you have to let go. You have to start bringing other people in. You have to systemize, optimize, outsource, delegate. So if you don't change your mindset, and again, this is where the mindset comes really strongly in, when you don't change this, no matter how great your business model, business opportunity, you will not be able to actually make it happen and grow that business and have the success you should have if you don't learn to let go. Yes. And I think partnerships and JVs, joint ventures of different types, are an element of really knowing how to bring someone in, maybe in a way that someone hasn't done before, but really bring them in, find terms on which it works. So this is really important. You were talking about this before, how to really what to base that relationship upon. It has to be transparent. It has to be clear. It has to be very, very clear, written down, of course, and agreed upon by both parties.
Yeah, I agree. And as you were talking, I flashed back to my beginnings in the self-development arena. Mm-hmm. I was invited to be a partner with someone else. Mm-hmm. And I had not totally forgotten it, but the brain just pulled it forth as you were speaking. And we became partners in co-presenting workshops. Mm-hmm. And that's how it started, with larger medium-sized groups, whatever you want to call them, and which put me on the path because other things occurred, in the relationship. Other things occurred. We were friends. His mate at the time didn't want me involved business-like with her husband. It was just very silly, but it happened, and then I went on my own. Mm-hmm. And so it was the reverse of what you're speaking about. But I do know that there's a great deal of benefit, and you need trust. Trust is absolute. If you can't trust someone, you can't work with them. You can't have fear and lack of trust when you're trying to do, even if it's a small joint venture. I mean, a joint venture, usually a real estate joint venture is saddled with a multi-page contract. You know where you stand at all times, and really the personalities don't matter that much. I have a background in real estate from a while back, and my experience in that is, it doesn't matter if you don't like the person, because you're going for the bottom line. Mm-hmm. But the better you like the person, the bigger the transactions can become. The more Absolutely. You trust the person. So trust, I think, is key. And of course, the mindset, but the mindset has to be turned to trust first, and then other things will fall into play. So you also have here something on your promo sheet that you discuss hacks. Is this one of your hacks, which is the partnerships?
Yes, it definitely is. So this is definitely going back to where the conversation around partnership started, a way to become more visible and create that pool from potential clients. Another way that's really good as well, I find, is doing lives. And again, this is where in the group, or again, this can be now on LinkedIn, or this can be now on Facebook, Instagram. So all social media really offer that option. And this is really where you become much closer to people who might be interested in working with you. And it's whether you like it or not, but the principle of know, like, trust people go through those stages when they, whether they meet you online or meet you offline. There's always the process when they meet you first and they decide whether they like you and then trust you. Of course, sometimes online this can be accelerated and has been accelerating, especially in lockdown, I think, for many people. Mm-hmm. But this is definitely also a way where someone gets direct access, and specifically when it's about a topic. So every Tuesday, for example, I run a live, and it's always on a topic of business mindset or accountability. And I make sure that the topic is known up front, so people can ask me questions, send me questions. But also when I go live, like I did earlier this week, we can have an exchange online where I can answer specific questions, and also I see straight away the feedback as well, where I can see directly whether someone is interested in actually pulling then on the content that I'm offering and the hacks and tips that I'm sharing as well.
Well, that's intriguing because I have made it a point, because it's just easier for me to do audio-only podcasts. I have been invited to do video podcasts and or lives on Facebook, LinkedIn. I don't know if anything else was involved. And I've deferred that because part of it is that I'm lazy. I don't know what it is.
An interesting choice of words.
That whatever. It's not the perfect word, but it might be the imperfect word, but whatever. It's just that, but I see the advantage of going live because you have people there who have a need. They will ask you questions about the need and they will see you paying attention to them. And I see that doing a live much better than doing a video podcast, because doing a video podcast means that I, as the host or as the guest, I'm spending too much time reading the other person's face. And that's what I've been given as my excuse. So now my excuse no longer exists because I can just do a Facebook Live or a LinkedIn Live and not have to deal with the affects that people come up with. You know what I'm talking about, right? When you read the person's face and
yes.
And it's a distraction to me. But doing a live is not a distraction.
And it's really, really interesting what you're saying, because ultimately it's about, the audience, right?
Yes.
So your audience, your audience, we've been speaking about this before, really loves and appreciates the way how you present the content and the value add. And there are so many different audiences, people who like receiving audio content, people who prefer receiving visual content, people who like to read, and so forth. So I think this is really different channels for different audiences, where ultimately, as long as the content is authentic, it's then up to the audience to make the decision which channel they are going to pursue.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense, though, what you're saying, because I'm looking, you have a YouTube channel as well. And on your YouTube channel, is that a separate live situation, or do you post your Facebook Lives onto YouTube?
So there is a combination of different resources. I post my lives both on YouTube and on Facebook when they go live. Also, they remain there. So I actually reference in my emails and the resources I share with people. I actually currently reference some of the lives, some of the questions that have come up. So really the interactions with the audience as well. And there's also some content. So once a month, I actually interview members of the group, Facebook group I have, the Accountable Mindset Community, because it's great to see people who have already started having success. So I may be ahead of others, but I'm not so far ahead that it seems unreachable when you're just starting out and maybe facing challenges. So these interviews are also available on the YouTube channel. And then, of course, I'm posting things like masterclasses I've done before and the upcoming challenge as well.
Okay. So what you just said, the upcoming challenge, what is that? Is that something I missed?
Yeah, I haven't mentioned it before, so sorry. One of the recurrent themes that have been coming up in the group is that people struggle for time. And very often, whether it's a reason or an excuse, it stops them from pursuing either starting a business or continuing to grow a business. So life gets in the way, they firefight during the day, things don't happen the way they planned. So the challenge I'm running is to help people to find that 1 hour in the day that actually where they can maybe drop something, eliminate something, maybe do something differently. There's lots of different techniques.
Right.
And that hour a day actually amounts to, when you think about it, 365 hours per year. And I like breaking things down into normal working day because it tends to be quite relatable, 8 hours. And I know it's not everyone's working day, but it tends to be quite relatable. And when you break it down between the end of August when I ran the challenge and end of the year, so about 4 months, this actually 1 hour a day that someone can find and reallocate means 16 working days. So this is 3 weeks that someone can actually find just by being more efficient by 1 hour a day.
There you go. Okay, you have shared some very profound information. I like all of it. I like the lives, and I especially like the partnership approach, because I think that makes a great deal of sense, because there are many people floating about who go, oh, that person's just like me. And not that you should necessarily have a partnership with someone just like you, but if you align in your values, you have a head start. So, Joanna, how can people find you? You have a lot of information to give, and people would not want to know where your next live is coming up, and more about you and more about your clients and your perspective and your point of view. How can they find you?
So I have a website. It's www.theaccountablemindset.com/home. And there is all the information about the business and mindset support I'm offering to business owners. And also the links to social media, so LinkedIn, Instagram, and the Facebook community.
Okay, people, there you go. Joanna Pohorski at theaccountablemindset.com/home. I hope you've been able to gain some insights as to your own business or startup. And as I always remind my guests, please listen to this podcast again with a notepad and a pen, because number one, pen and paper gets to your brain quicker than a document on the internet. You could always do that as a backup. And you have missed things. Trust me, you have missed things in your first listening. So listen to this again. And I want to thank Joanna for being here. I keep calling her Johanna. It's Joanna. My name is Joanne. Her name is Joanna. Okay, everybody take care. Joanna, thank you for being here today. And I wish you the best in your future. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much, Joanne.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.